Hey, good morning, CSL Palm Desert. It's good to see you all again. I'm so glad you were here. So we had a change in our programming this week. Dr. Charles, or excuse me, Reverend Charles needed to go up to Seattle to take care of some family business. So I'm sort of taking over for him in his class yesterday and today. And we'll do that again next week as well. So I'm going to do the best I can talking about non-resistance. But actually, it's one of my favorite topics. So I've pulled in some things from this thing called You. I pulled in things from Dr. Ernest Holmes. So I still think it's going to be a great class. So I hope you enjoy this. So we're going to be talking about non-resistance. The first thing I'd like you to do, though, is close your eyes, take a deep breath in, settle into wherever you're sitting on, and just get comfortable. And just listen to these words. The law of good is continuously an operative law in my life. I am always equal to any task before me. I am confident of my ability to meet every situation. I can solve every problem, overcome every difficulty. Realizing that spirit knows no obstruction, I have implicit confidence in its ability to operate through me always and under every situation. I am a free soul. I am completely, positively, and eternally free. I am free from doubt, fear, or unhappiness. Today and forever, I am a free soul. Take a deep breath in and exhale. So there you go. So I don't know how to do slides on a PowerPoint or on a Zoom share YouTube video thing, but Jeff does. So thank you for Swing Point Media. So Jeff, just bring up our first slide, and we're just going to go through the first two real quick. First off, when we start talking about non-resistance, one of the key phrases that has always popped up in all of my training, that always popped off the page on my notes, is just this one simple sentence: none of these things move me. None of these things move me. At times in our lives when we are looking at a situation and we find ourselves building up resistance or anger or frustration, and then that begins to mount in our consciousness, one of the things we can do is this little one sentence: none of these things move me. It's a declaration that I cannot be swayed from what I just prayed you in with, that authority, that confidence, that positive, eternally free soul that you are. It can't move me. Now, it can, make no mistake, it can if I allow it to. But when I say that affirmation at the very beginning, when I feel my resistance to something start to bubble up, none of these things move me. When I feel that anger or that frustration, none of these things move me. And I mean, I know in the situation we're currently in, there's a lot of opportunity to practice this mantra: none of these things move me. There is plenty of opportunity to be swayed and to be upset and to be angry and to watch other people who are angry or upset or for whatever reason, all sides of all equations. The thing that we want to recognize is this: I have the ability to say none of these things move me and stand in that truth. That's the first thing with non-resistance. Next slide, Jeff. Eckhart Tolle said this: non-resistance is the key to the greatest power in the universe. Now, I love Eckhart Tolle. I think he's great. I love his readings, and I love what he says there. Non-resistance is the key to the greatest power. I think when we learn to not necessarily surrender, but go into the flow of things, when we move into the flow of life and not resist constantly, that is one of the greatest spiritual tools we can use to move through any situation. Now, resistance, when it comes to the idea of resistance and non-resistance, no one's asking you to surrender in terms of throw up the white flag and surrender and say, okay, I just give up. No one's asking you to give up in this idea of non-resistance. But what we are asking is this: take a look and find out why you're resisting something, because there's probably a root cause that comes from your old paradigm, your old thinking, that's actually holding you down. I read something from Sigmund Freud, and I wanted to share this with you because there's actually psychology around this resistance, idea of resistance. Let me share it with you. Freud said this: all these serves the explicit purpose of defending the ego against feelings of discomfort. Freud once wrote, "It is hard for the ego to direct its attention to perceptions and ideas which it has up till now made a rule of avoiding, or to acknowledge as belonging to itself impulses that are complete opposites of that which it already owns." So let me get back to that. Freud said, it is hard for the ego to direct its attention to perception and ideas which has up till now, big change, up till now, made a rule of avoiding. One of the things, our ego automatically will turn off an idea or begin building up resistance, because many things in life we do try to avoid. Confrontation, sometimes within a relationship or with an employer, or looking at your real financial situation, or looking at examining, if you will, relationships, and examining your health and examining those things. When one begins to do that, the ego immediately pops up and says, you know what, let's not do that. You know, let's call a friend, go out to dinner, or let's do something, anything but that, because I don't want to open up this big old can of worms. Let's just leave it be. Let it on its own. We don't need to deal with this. And the ego is very, very persuasive. It will come up through your mind and start talking to you in ways that you're thinking, oh yeah, no, that's just so much easier. So you put it on the back burner. We keep putting everything on the back burner. Eventually, there's no more back burners to put things on, and you become overwhelmed. And that's when we start moving into a series of depressions and situational anxiety, because we put so much on the back burner that we can't figure out where to begin. It becomes overwhelming. And then we come, what I call that paralysis kicks in. So non-resistance can also cause paralysis if we don't start moving into a place of acceptance and at least opening up the door to a conversation for something that could be greater and more expressive for the universe to bring you through and expand into something greater. I hope that makes sense. But I love this idea. I'm going to read it again. It is hard for the ego to direct its attention to perceptions and ideas which it has up till now made a rule of avoiding, or to acknowledge as belonging to itself impulses that are complete opposite of that which it knows as its own. So when those things begin to strike up and you find yourself saying the words, I'll just deal with that later. Keep in mind, what's really saying, let's do this later? It's the ego. We have to work through that. Next slide, Jeff. Resistance. I love this too. Resistance is hell. Resistance is hell, for it places us in a state of constant torment. The things that we avoid the most seem to pop up all the time, don't they? The things that I avoid the most, that resistance, the thing I resist, it swirls around in my mind. And then I tell myself, don't obsess about this, Joe. Why are you obsessing about this? Why are you upset about this? Why do you keep bringing this up? And it keeps swirling and swirling and swirling. And it creates, for me and for others, a state of hell, not a state of heaven, not a state of, living in the kingdom of heaven. It's creating a temporary hell in which we reside. How many people, how many times in your life have you resisted something, and then when you finally decided to make a move, and you busted a move, finally you decided to make a move, you said to yourself, I waited so long. I should have done this a long, long, long time ago. Come on. We've all done that. We've all entrenched ourselves in positions and unreasonable positions. I know people that have been in unhappy relationships, but they resisted the idea of separation because of what other people might perceive and what they might think of them, or the fact that they didn't want to appear to have been involved in a relationship that broke up, or the failure around that, if you will. And they resisted it. So they stayed in that situation much longer than they had to. I'll tell you what, years ago, this is 35, 40 years ago, 35 or so, long before Trey. I had a relationship, and I spent 2 years getting into the relationship and 3 years getting out. And what I realized is what a waste of time that period of 3 years. Yeah, now some people would say, well, you had to go through a period. No, I didn't have to, because it took 3 years to get out of it, and then I was starting over again. If I would have just acknowledged the fact that something wasn't working in a given moment, and we, even though we tried and tried and tried to actually just say, you know what, let's move on. But no, we didn't do that. We just resisted the idea of having to admit that something needed to change. And as a result, we spent 2 years in a relationship and 3 years trying to find our way out. And it wasn't that it was uncomfortable. It wasn't that it was awful, but it did create a situation where it was a temporary hell, because no one could grow. No one could move on. We were just held in this state for that period of time. All right, next slide, please. This is one of my favorites. By the way, if you have questions or you want me to comment, this is not just a lecture. I would love to see people asking questions and in the comment section. So as soon as a slide pops off, I can see those questions and I'll answer them for you. All right. So please feel free to join in. This is not a lecture. This is a give and take class. I want to hear from you. This is there are so many people that fit this definition. Nothing on earth can resist an absolutely non-resistant person. Nothing on earth can resist an absolutely non-resistant person. When I wrote that yesterday, when I was putting this together, I was thinking of the person that I met who was in my presence, I'll just say that, one of the most non-resistant people I have ever met was Reverend Marion Whiteman. And she just had a way, no matter what you presented to her, she had this intuitive, I want to say an intuitive flow, an intuitive nature about her, that whatever you were resisting, she sort of opened up the floodgates to it and reframed it in such a way that you just wanted to be in the presence of that energy, because there was never a resistance to things. It was always a movement into something different, a movement into something greater. The things that existed and our current reality existed, but they existed only for them to change. They didn't exist to and hold on to. They existed only to change them. Okay, good question. Here we go. How does this relate to acceptance? Hang in there. You do have a great question. And I'm going to come to that, because that's going to be the last part about this, where we actually move into a place of acceptance, because that acceptance opens the floodgates of opportunity. Okay, I'm going to get to that, I promise you. So good question. It's coming up. What tips can you give regarding moving through the feeling of paralysis that comes up when we get stuck in resistance? Oh, one of the biggest things that you can do is begin the first mantra: none of these things move me. None of these things move me. I'm giving them more power than they are entitled to. I am the director of my movie. I'm the director of my life. I am the one who has spiritual authority over my life. And none of these things move me. That's the first thing. I start affirming none of these things move me. Excuse me. Then I actually take time. I get out a piece of paper and a pen, and I write down what I know, or what I think that is true about this situation. What do I think is true, and what do I think how it's impacting me? And then I let that sit for a little while. And then I have to tell myself, none of these things move me. What is the truth of my being? And I have to pull out my spiritual tool belt and start saying, wait a minute, when I read this doesn't sound like something that Joe needs to participate in anymore. When I read it, I'll go, do I really want to give away my authority, my power to this? One of the tips in moving through feelings of paralysis is actually doing something. So when you begin to take those problems and you allow yourself to whittle them down, if you will, to put it into some concept or some sort of writing, when one does that, you will find that slowly, little by little, step by step, your resistance to these things and your empowerment of these things, you empowering them, will begin to diminish, because you'll go, wait a minute, this can't work. But in the paralysis is usually what I call that hamster wheel. In the paralysis, that hamster wheel where you're spinning, you're spinning, you're spinning, you're spinning. It feels like you're paralyzed. You're actually moving, but not moving anywhere. It's like the stationary bike that you just keep riding. You know, you're riding it, but you're not going anywhere. You're still there in the same spot. We do that with our emotions, and we get stuck in that place. So, good question. I hope that answers that. So nothing on earth can resist an absolutely non-resistant person. And one of the reasons I think that's true is because when you're in the presence of people who are open to the ideas of change, open to the ideas that there is more than one idea around something, that there is more than one correct answer to something. Think about that. You know, everybody thinks there's a right and a wrong. What if we have two rights or three rights? Now, it doesn't mean that everybody has to agree with the with a certain way of resolving something, but that's just not everybody has to be right. There could be many right answers to things, you know, not just one. There's not just one. There's this creative energy that creates all sorts of solutions to everything. All right. Next thing. Here we go. Keep going, Jeff. Thank you so much. To work with the power, you must yield to it and still the reasoning mind. It's interesting. Last night I was on a call with all the ministerial students in Los Angeles and ours here in the Valley, and we brought up the concept of the reasoning mind. And does the universe have a reasoning mind? But I'm gonna put it in a context that's a little bit different than what it was last night. To work with the power, you must yield to it. Notice that it was a capital I-T. In other words, in order to work with the power, we have to yield to the power, all right? Which means I have to allow myself not to get caught up in my own ego, right? That's imperative, right? We have to yield to it and still the reasoning mind. Okay. When it says still the reasoning mind, this is one of the things, this is how I want to approach something on this. I know a lot of people, myself included at times, that why did this happen? Why did this happen? Why is this happening to me? Why does it keep happening to me? And they get into this pattern where they're constantly questioning the why behind something happened. Now, I get it. I do it. Everybody does it. You know, this is not an unusual behavior. In fact, I think it's a common behavior. The question is, how long do I want to stay in that questioning place? Because when I still my questioning mind and I yield to the all-knowing mind, then I've opened the door to the change. If not, I'm still riding the question mark. And riding the question mark isn't opening up any doors to possibilities. You're just looking behind you, trying to figure out why. Now, there's a valid reason that we do that, and there's a time that we do that. But the obsession around it, that's what I'm trying to get away from. The obsession around it is one of the things I want us to look at. Why is this happening to me? Why? So in order to work with this power, we have to yield to that power and stop questioning how I got where I got at that moment, right? It is what it is. Buddha, what is, period. We can't change what is or how it got there. Now, all we can change is how we deal with it from this moment on. I did a talk a long time ago called So What, Now What? You know, people will tell you their problems. And I said, what if you just went, oh, so what? Now what? And people thought, oh my God, that would be so rude. But really, when you think about it, okay, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to nod my head, and you can just lay it all out there, because I know part of the process is just releasing the words. Okay. But don't do that too often, because then when you release the words to this person and that person, and then you post it on social media, and then you write an email to someone about it, and then you're talking to your therapist about it, and then you're talking to other people about it, then you want some more counseling around it, then you take some friends out and you want to talk about it, and you call them up and you keep talking about it. That's not releasing it. Actually, what that's doing is empowering it. There's a chance for you to go, what I call it my personal confession. There's a chance for you to go and say, I need to get this off my chest. Okay, I need to get this off my chest. And once this is off my chest, then I'll move on. But let me get this off my chest. And the person who's on the other side of that just knows Joe is going to go kind of crazy in a few minutes, and he's going to say some stuff that, you know, he just needs to get off his chest. I don't need to try to fix it. It's the key. When I'm trying to release things, I'm not asking anyone else to fix it. I'm going to yield to the power to fix it and stop with my reasoning mind. Now, the reasoning mind is the thing that got us where we are today. So remember that. When we ask the question, why is this happening to me? We kind of need to reframe that question. And what can I do to look at the things that have happened that brought me to this place? What was my level of participation? What was my level of volunteerism? And how did I volunteer for some of these things? Anyway, therein lies the stilling of the reasoning mind. You know, so many times I've sat there and I said to myself, God, I just wish I knew how I got myself into this situation again. And then I always say, it's because you're always there, Joe, because you haven't changed the pattern of your behavior. You haven't changed your response to questions that people ask you. You haven't changed those responses. So you will get to the same place. So anyway, just a different idea. Jeff, the next one, please. This is a biblical phrase, which always kind of bothered me. And I brought it up here because it just, when it comes to non-resistance, it compels me to talk about it because I never quite understood it. All right. Agree with thine adversary quickly. The quickest way, and now this may sound really strange, and probably I'll get some bad comments about it. The quickest way to shut down a conversation is to go, you know what? You're right. You're right. I'm not going to argue with you. You're right. I'm not going to argue with you. Now, when I say that, I'm saying you're right, not saying I think you're right, but this person thinks they're right. So you're right. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to change your mind. Love it. Every quickest way is to stay really quiet and go, you know what? I'm not going to argue with you. You're right. And they'll walk away going, wait, what? But then they're going to get, it's like, don't keep harping on it. I said, I'm declaring this a win for you. And then they get really kind of upset because they want to be able to fight their way and convince you to the answer. Say, look, I'm not telling you that I'm agreeing with it, but I'm saying, if you think you're right, you're right. I'm not going to change your mind. There's nothing I'm going to be able to say to you that's going to change your mind, right? It's crazy. So next part of that, Jeff, you can keep it down, doesn't matter. Every failure, confrontation, or challenge is a God experience, and believe them to be necessary component on the pathway to your success and happiness. So anytime we've been met with failure, confrontation, or challenge, it's all part of a God experience. It's all part of the God experience, and believe it to be, and this is what it's never, I shouldn't say that. This is what for me has been one of the greatest challenges. Believe it to be a necessary experience in our evolution to success and happiness. That part of it has always been a little sketchy for me. You know, that part of it has always been, okay, it's part of my necessary thing to my experience. I'm not sure why, but then in hindsight, when I look back at it, yeah, you know, all of my failed relationships were a necessary part of my growth. And I say that because I learned from every one of them. I totally learned from every one of them. every one of my challenges or career changes or whatever they were, or something that didn't go the way I thought it should go, or that was, whatever that was. When I look back on it now, I'm glad it worked out the way it did. Now, I think I've shared the story before. At one point, I was having a midlife crisis and I wanted to change my job. And so I interviewed on all these jobs, and God, I'm so glad I didn't get any of them, because they would have never brought me to a place where I'm doing what I'm doing now and enjoying doing it. All right. So someone wrote in the comments, we are so quick to blame the last truck that went over the bridge for the reason it collapsed. What? That's a great one. Oh, I like that. I like it. We do. It was that fault, that whole thing collapsed. No, something had been riding over that for a long time. It's not the final argument that collapses the relationship. It's the fact that the foundation behind it has been crumbling and no one noticed or took time to fix it. Same thing with our financial house, right? All of those things, when we start looking at those things, they it wasn't the last thing. It was the final blow, maybe, that made it happen. It's pushed the thing over the edge. But up to that point, there were structural issues that were fading, that were weak. All right. Next slide, please. Non-resistance means that instead of fighting conditions, we go along with the universe and admit there isn't a problem that does not have a spiritual solution. Non-resistance means that instead of fighting conditions, we go along with the universe and admit there isn't a problem that does not have a spiritual solution. So there's a spiritual solution to everything. There's a spiritual solution to what we're moving through now in this global pandemic. There's a spiritual solution that will make itself manifest in physical form that will change things. We haven't gotten there yet. But I remember a lot of cures for a lot of diseases and things didn't happen overnight. It took a while. It took research. It took commitment. It took someone getting the divine download into their mind about how they can change things or create, a vaccine or medicine or whatever that is that create the change. The divine download takes a little time. And then once they get the divine download, it takes time to implement through a logical and sequential order all those things that need to be done. And the universe presents them in such a logical and sequential order. And remember, like I said the other day, if you try to skip over certain steps, the universe has a way of pulling you back and making sure you take the proper steps along the way. If you don't, you'll be back repeating them again. So there is a divine solution. Non-resistance means that instead of fighting all the conditions, fighting, just know there's a solution to this. There's a solution to this. Now, I guess what I want to say is it's the fight, the word fight, the confrontation, the resistance, the anxiety, the tension. Those are not spiritual. Think about it. Those are not spiritually flowing words. Now, I don't want to sound airy fairy on it, but those are not spiritually flowing words. Resistance, anger, frustration, those don't feel like, they're real, and your expression of God. So you're expressing those things. But when you think about it, one of the biggest things I've learned over the past, I don't know, I guess 2 or 3 years is there is a spiritual solution to everything. Don't rush to the table to create a solution that doesn't come through a flow process, through a natural flow of process. When forced to do something, usually things have to be redone because I didn't use a spiritual idea or a spiritual protocol, if you will. I didn't follow that protocol that put me into the place where I think I have an answer. I just kind of forced an answer. It was the ego. Gotta fix it, instead of taking time to receive the divine download of an idea. I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense? I hope so. Moving right along, keeping moving along. There's two things going to go really fast here, Jeff. Many people suffer from a form of NRSDS. Are you ready? Next slide. NRSDS, what does it mean? Jeff, next slide. Jeff. Next slide. What does it mean? There we go. This is what it means. Non-resistant spiritual doormat syndrome. Someone was talking about what do I have to do to fix this? Many people become spiritual doormats. Spiritual doormats. Next slide, please. Non-resistant spiritual doormat syndrome. What does it mean? Someone has to stop. Non-resistance and wisdom combined keep you from becoming a doormat. Non-resistance and wisdom. So when people talk about how do you fix this? The non-resistance takes wisdom, all right? Being wise, making good sound decisions. Non-resistance and wisdom combined keep you from being a spiritual doormat. A lot of people are spiritual doormats. They volunteer for and allow themselves under the oh, I'm just going with the flow, and this is what happens, and I'm always being hurt, and I'm always being put into situations. Wow, you know what? It's probably because you're allowing yourself to be a spiritual doormat. And people do that, especially in metaphysics. I'll take it on myself. I'll do it. No. You can't take on anyone else's journey but your own. And you don't allow people to walk over you. You stand in your spiritual authority. Someone just said suggestions for how to do self-forgiveness. That is, self-forgiveness in and of itself is an entire topic that we require. I could go into a lot of things. It's a whole class, bunch of classes unto themselves. But suggestions on how to do self-forgiveness, the key component there is to realize that self-forgiveness is releasing you from the jail that you've put yourself in. That's all it is. It's not declaring that someone's right, someone's wrong. No, it's giving you self-forgiveness is a key that opens the jail cell that you've put yourself in, that has kept you there for whatever reason, right? That's how we exercise it. We look at that and we say, I know that I can release myself from this consciousness or thought atmosphere that I've had myself in for a while. I can change that by putting in new ideas, letting the situation go and be what it is, right? I don't need to hunt that person down or hunt that situation down. I just need to release it. It doesn't make them right. It doesn't make me wrong. What it means is I mean more to me than hanging on to this situation. Okay. When we become a spiritual doormat, we just allow ourselves to say, whatever it's supposed to be is supposed to be. No. Whatever's supposed to be, you're going to help design. Now, things unfold the way they're meant to in the logical and sequential order, but we don't just lay down and just say, okay, just do it, take it. No, we're not like that. If God is love and God is all there is, then solutions originate and are comprised with compassion. Then all solutions originate and are comprised with compassion and love. That is an accurate statement if the person is expressing God as love, right? But God as anger or God as frustration is just as valid as God as love, because the person's just expressing. It's where everyone's using one law, it's how we use it, right? Now, everyone's using God's law. Everyone uses universal law. Now, where they fall on the energy of that, positive energy, negative energy, that's going to be up to personal choice, free will. We were given free will. We were given personal choice. So I agree totally. If God is love and God is all there is, then solutions originate and are comprised with the passion, love. Absolutely. If that's where you're coming from. If you're coming from fear, if you're coming from anger, if you're coming from jealousy or hatred, all those things, then you're coming from a place using God's law to create more of those emotions. Okay. God's law always says yes. The universe always says yes to my emotions, to my desires. So if it's always saying yes, I have to make sure that I'm coming from a place of that. I hope that makes sense. All right. Next slide, Jeff. Love this part. Resistance does not cease when you add more resistance. There you go. If I keep piling it on, eventually I'll make up a big enough roadblock or a cement wall that no one will get through. Doesn't work that way. Resistance does not cease when you add more. Resistance is like pushing on a closed door that's locked, and you keep pushing and turning the handle, trying to get out, and nothing else is happening except your body's getting a lot more sore. You just keep pushing on that closed door. Just because you add more weight and force behind it's not going to make that door open. If there's resistance there, you're pushing on a door that's already closed, and you're pushing it harder into being closed. You're pushing it into the door frame where it's saying, nope, absolutely not. You're not getting out of here. Don't add the resistance. The thing about one of the lessons of this is that when you're pushing on the door, you feel that energy of resistance just pushing against the door. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to take a step back and take the door and just open it a crack. Not all the way, just all I would say is this much. You just got to give me this much. Just enough light to make the darkness go away. Just this much. When you can do that and you can open the door just a little bit and begin to move into what could be another demonstration, don't be afraid of what's on the other side. You probably already dealt with it. Chances are you probably married it or whatever, took the job with it. All it is the idea of I need to step back and open the door instead of keep pushing on it. The very thing instinctively we think we want to do, which is push and keep it closed, we have to do a 180 of that and go, wait a minute, what do I need to open to change this? Not what do I need to close? What do I need to be open to change this? From resistance to non-resistance. Think about it as the door. Think about moving in a door. What do I need to open to change this to non-resistance? Okay. All right, here we go. I've been a doormat my whole life, and it is challenging for me to stand up in my truth. Any suggestions? Yes, actually, keep taking classes, keep listening, and starting to use these spiritual tools. And once you feel like you have a grasp of these tools and you've experimented with them, you will be able to stand in your spiritual authority and not be a doormat. I've watched it happen. I can't tell you, with the hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands over the years, of people who were doormats for other people, and they became empowered. When you become empowered and you become awakened and you realize that there's no requirement for you to do that anymore. In fact, you're diminishing your own life experience by always being a doormat. Another thing too, I'm going to say this. A lot of people are quick to be first aid kits. Oh my God, there's a problem. Run in, wrap it up. I'll help you. I'll help you. Right. And it's really good if they can do that. The question is, in their own life, do they have a lot of bleeding issues that they haven't resolved? And it's easier to help someone else than to help themselves. It's easier to try to fix someone else and help fix their life and give of themselves to help change things for the other person. And they allow themselves to just continue to be a mess. I'll just say it, to be a hot mess. So you have to ask yourself, am I a first aid kit? Do I run in and try to rescue everybody? I mean, sometimes instinctively, that's what we do. I mean, I know that. I know that sometimes that's what I do, and so that I have to make sure that when I'm moving into or sharing, I'm coming from. All right. Here we go. Next thing, resistance does not cease when you add more resistance. Next part. Discord is born, sustained, and maintained through our own emotional discord. Take away the emotional response to discord and the situation fades away forever. Oh, how to get from resistance to non-resistance. Learn to look at your emotions and your emotional fire, okay? Look at the emotional fire that you're stoking that problem with, that you're putting underneath it. And look, I'm just basically this talk is for me. Non-resistance. It's every time I talk about this subject, I go, oh man, I really need to talk about this myself. It's really easy to speak these words. it's kind of a challenge to continue to apply these words all the time. All right. Um, take away the emotional response to discord and the situation begins to fade. As soon as I begin to turn the fire down, the the requirement or the necessity of, you know, the fire department showing up to try to fix something, it diminishes. The fire fades on its own. And then I can look clearly at something. Remember, we talked about earlier, you know, stepping away from the reasoning mind, the emotional mind, stepping away from that and allowing the power of the mind, the capital M, it, allowing it to do its work, surrendering to that power within you to do the work instead of riding the emotional roller coaster, which is usually fueled by the ego. My feelings got hurt. Yeah, your ego doesn't like to get hurt. I need to fight. You know, or I'm scared about something financial, or I'm scared about my health, or I'm scared about, you know, whatever it is, my creativity, my job. And then I begin to let the fire go on. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. All right, let's keep rolling. We got a couple more to go, and we got 20 more minutes. Yay! I hope you guys are enjoying this talk. I don't know how many people are on, but I hope you're enjoying this. Here we go. When we resist, we lose our peace. As long as you keep letting situations disturb you, you will remain disturbed. What you resist persists. Remember that? Dr. Tom used to say that. When we resist, we lose our peace. We're sacrificing our peace. When we resist, now I'm not saying you cave in. Don't mistake non-resistance for caving in. That's not what this is about. That is not about that, right? Not at all. Yeah, the next slide. What you resist persists. Exactly. So when you resist, we lose our peace. And as long as you keep letting situations disturb you, you will remain disturbed. Say that to yourself. As long as I allow myself to be disturbed, I will continue to be disturbed. When are you going to say enough is enough? When are you going to throw down the gauntlet and go, I'm done with this? I'm done letting this disturb me. Let me move on. Universe, I'm open and receptive to the answer. Get back into prayer, get back into meditation, call a practitioner, put yourself on the prayer list, take some aggressive spiritual actions and start moving in the direction of it instead of wallowing in it. You know, but you have to remove that emotional fight around it. You have to turn that down a little bit. Wait before you send that next email. Wait before you make the phone call. Don't have a knee-jerk reaction, but have a spiritually thought out reaction, right? So those things. All right. Next one. Keep it going. Whenever you antagonize something, right? Whenever you antagonize, you magnetize, and magnifying and attract more of it in your life. So whatever you antagonize, in other words, if you just keep poking at it and poking at it and poking at it, you are giving it a magnet. It becomes magnetized. It begins attracting what I poke at in my experience, and in a lot of ways. Like if I start, and I look, I don't know how to say this other than say it. When I start looking at my own downfalls in certain areas and I begin to poke at myself and poke at myself and poke at myself and, you know, you didn't do this right and you didn't do that right and you didn't do this right and you didn't do that right. When I begin to poke at myself on those things, all I'm doing is attracting more experiences to feel that way. I'm literally magnetizing and magnifying that experience. So the non-resistance is being able to accept what is on the level of this is what it is, without the paradigm, without the background knowledge, without any of the what if how-tos. This is what I am dealing with. Don't resist what your small r is, your small reality. See it, say, this is it. This doesn't move me anymore. Universe, what's next? What is next? All right. Next thing, you will always expand what you emphasize. Remember this. When I'm in gratitude and I experience reasons to be more grateful, right? When I am angry and I emphasize that, I will experience more anger. Um, have you ever heard the term on a roll? He's on a roll, or he's on he's on a tangent. That's what happens. We get on we get on this emotional roller coaster, and it's one that maybe it's like the roller coaster. We fight, we fight getting on it for a long time. We're like, no, 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 no. And then finally, whoosh, down we go. And we begin to really feel and expand whatever that is. So if you're feeling anxious and it's just building up, just expect to go on a ride where it just keeps flooding to you and spinning around and creating more reasons to be anxious. It's whatever you emphasize. So how do I change what I'm emphasizing? Excuse me. How do I change what I'm emphasizing? I have to make a decision. Go back to the very first slide. None of these things move me. It's not going to move me anymore. I've already had to withstand this. I know the ifs, ands, or buts. It's like, no, this doesn't move me anymore. Now what? What am I going to do now? To me, that's where we go. All right. Let's see. Next one, Jeff. The last one. I love this. Sounds kind of strange, but I like this concept. Baptize every event in your life. I christened thee as part of my life experience, and now I move into, just like you christen a child, you baptize a child, right? As we baptize or christen a child, we name it, right? I name it as an event in my life, and then we watch the child grow up. Does that make sense? We name it. We say, okay, you know what? I name you as an event in my life, just like we name a child. And now I'm going to watch myself grow in my life as a result of this. Does that make sense? I hope so. So name it, and then know that you're growing through it. All right. Let's see. Hang on. I got a couple more things here. Let me get some questions. Is this being recorded? Yes, it's always on YouTube. Anything that we ever teach online is on YouTube. Subscribe to the Center for Spiritual Living Palm Desert channel. Subscribe. Go down the very bottom. Then whenever you log on to YouTube, you can click on the subscription thing, and it will show you all of our talks that we've done. All right. Oh, then I didn't need to answer that. I guess they answered it online for me. Someone's enjoying it. Someone's loving it. The material today is very practical. Thank you. All right, here we go. You have mentioned in the past the idea of safe passage. I found that works for me when I totally disagree with someone's opinion and I don't want to argue. I give them safe passage and I don't get attached or triggered. Oh, perfect. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So let's talk about, for those people who don't know what safe passage is. Remember when I was a kid, we have this carnival in the downtown area of our little community. And they had one of those booths, those gaming booths, where an animal, not a real animal, a plastic animal on a track would go back and forth. And with your little pop gun or cork gun, you tried to shoot the animal as it goes across, your target practice. Now I look and I realize, boy, I can't believe I never did that. But so many times we let people go out of our life and then we put them on a track and we have our gun and we just keep looking for them. We keep looking for them. We don't give them safe passage out of our life. It's like, man, if I see him again, I'm going to let him have it. I'm going to let her have it. I'm cocked and ready, locked and loaded, all that stuff. And you don't give people safe passage. One huge way, someone talked about forgiveness earlier, one huge way to accomplish that is to allow people safe passage the way I want safe passage. Think about it. If I want to leave an experience, I don't want people to feel like they need to hunt down and get angry and get even, or, you'll get yours, all that. Look, just, if it's not working, let it go. Just let it go. Give people safe passage. You don't have to knock them over the head or kick them on the way out. That's just bad karma, man. You know what? Treat people the way you want to be treated. And if someone mistreated you, don't mistreat them. Then you're stooping to that level. When the blind lead the blind, they both end up in the ditch. Someone has to take the high road. Always take the high road. Give people safe passage out. Give them out. And I'm not saying, and you know what, I'm going to say this, not just people, but circumstances with people. Exercise forgiveness by allowing people safe passage out of something that they believe to be their truth, and you cannot change it, nor should you try, but you just allow them safe passage in that idea that they've allowed themselves to believe. That's not mine, that's theirs. Fine, believe it. I don't need to harm you in the process. I don't need to belittle you. I don't need to berate you or argue with you about it. I mean, to me, that's one of the greatest tools, is just give safe passage. And I'm not just talking about when people want to leave your life. I'm talking about people in your life. They're going to be in your life. That something happens, you give them safe passage so that if there's an agreement, you've already allowed yourself to exercise that. So to me, that's one of the things we can use, that concept of safe passage. I give you safe passage. I give you it. And if someone screwed up, you can two ways. I can beat them over the head with it. You did this, you did this, you did that. Or I'm like, you know what? It's okay. It's all right. Doesn't mean you have to. I'm not saying do it again. But I'm certainly saying, you know what? I love you enough to let it go and give you safe passage through it without beating you up or, shaming you or making you feel guilty or putting you in that, allowing that spiritual side or doormat side to rear its head. You don't have to walk over for that. All right. All right. So that's my class today. I want to close with a couple other prayers. There's several prayers from this thing called You. And Jeff, can you kind of interject here and tell me how that ends up, how people find that real quick? Maybe? Jeff?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we're doing is as soon as the class is over, we're just having a little bit of an internet issue, and I don't want to upload and disconnect this. But if you'll stay in the chat for just a few minutes here on this page, I will immediately upload those within the next 3 to 5 minutes after the close of today's class.
Okay, so there are a list of prayers, and I'm going to go through a couple. I did 2 of them already at the opening. And these, Reverend Charles sent these to me from this thing called You. They're called prayers as an antidote to resistance, and there's several of them. And then there's
share those.
Sorry?
Do you want to? I'm sorry, Dr. Joe. Do you want to share those on the screen?
Sure, absolutely. We have those.
Yep.
Can we put them on?
You bet. Coming up.
Wow. Ask and you shall receive, right?
There you go. You see those?
Oh yeah, here we go. Perfect. All right, here we go. That's good. All right, so if you look at these on the screen, those of you watching, I'm gonna read through them. It's gonna take a minute. Let's read through them together if you like. The law of good is continuously operative in my life. I am always equal to any task set before me. I am confident in my ability to meet every situation. I can solve every problem, overcome every difficulty. Realizing that spirit knows no obstruction, I have implicit confidence in its ability to operate through me always and in every situation. I am a free soul. I am completely, positively, and eternally free. We open with this. I am free from doubt, fear, or unhappiness today and forever. That which I seek is seeking me. That which belongs to me will come to me. Since it is my desire that only good, truth, love, wisdom, and power shall go from me, I know this, that it can come back to me. The kingdom of God is within and around me. I know that the power of the living spirit exists at the center of my being. There is no obstruction to this operation. There is no obstruction to the operation of this pattern. There is no irritation, agitation, or inflammation. There is no sense of unhappiness or morbidity. There is no confusion in spirit. Therefore, there is no confusion in my mind. There is one divine circulation flowing through me, which is never inhibited, retarded, or congested. The circulation is free, complete, and perfect, automatically eliminating everything that does not belong to pure spirit. There is no judgment, no condemnation, no criticism. I know that any belief in a power that damns, or a hell that waits, or a devil is false. Every such belief is eradicated. Any effect of such belief is wiped out. There is no damnation, no judgment coming in or passing through me. There is justice, knowledge, right government, divine guidance without judgment. This does not mean that I accept lies or think that mistakes are good as right action. It merely means that divine intelligence operates through me without confusion, calmly, forward moving, progressive, upward spiraling, outward reaching. I am guided by this infinite wisdom into that light which is eternal. My soul is jubilant. Is that it? I think there's more. Prayers to welcome persistence and perseverance. All right, let me go through a couple of these. The freedom of God is my freedom. The power of God is my power. The presence of God is with me. The mind of God is my mind. The strength of God is my strength. The joy of God is my joy. I expect everything I do to prosper. I enthusiastically expect success. I let good flow into my experience. I am seeing good in every direction I look. I am looking forward to more good. Whoa, I lost it. Jeff, I lost it. I'm looking forward to more good. There we go. I am entering into a deeper understanding of life. I am recognizing my union with all people and all events. Letting go of all previous mistakes, I know that today I am free and unhindered. I feel the operation of divine love and universal law in my affairs. I know that everything I am doing is governed by love and controlled through law. I am conscious that I am one with love of all people in essence and in joy. I know that the divine spirit is operating through me now. I know that I am not limited by anything that has happened or anything that is happening, that is now happening. I am entering into an entirely new set of conditions and circumstances. That which has no limit is flowing through my consciousness into action. I am guided by the same intelligence and inspired by the same imagination, which scatters the moonbeams across the waves and holds the forces of nature in its grasp. All right, last one. Knowing that the loving presence is always closer to me than my very breath, I have nothing to fear. I feel this loving protection around me. I know that the song of joy, of love, of peace is forever chanting its hymn of praise and beauty, and something else I can't read because I'm screen, the center of my being. Therefore, I tune out of my mind all unhappy, negative ideas. I turn the dial of my thought into the sunshine of life, into brightness and laughter, into the joyous presence of radiant spirit. I lay aside all anxiety, all striving, and let the law of divine love operate through me into my affairs. Joyfully, I anticipate greater abundance, more success, and a deeper peace. Joy wells up within my mind, and life sings its song of ecstasy in my heart. There you go. Jeff is going to have those available for you in just a few minutes, so just stay online. He'll have those available. Before we go, I just want to make a couple of quick announcements. Let's see. Oh, good. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I'm just reading comments about people enjoying the class. I'm glad you guys enjoyed this. Couple quick comments. Tomorrow, I'm doing the meditation at 10 o'clock. So please log in at 10 o'clock in the morning. Of course, we have our Sunday services coming up at 10. Next week, we've got a great calendar of events. Backed by popular demand, Reverend Dr. David Alt. People really enjoyed it. In fact, a lot of my ministerial colleagues around the country joined in on that call. So David Alt will be joining me. I forget what I'm doing on Tuesday. Sensational Six is on Wednesday. They're going to be doing something. Gail Morton and I are going to be talking about sheltering in and this grief process. Dr. Laura and I are going to talk about principles of living through this entire process. Dr. Laura and I will be on Friday. I think on Tuesday, I think I'm just going to move the doctors in and I'm going to grab a topic and go on just like I did today. So that's kind of in the plans that we have. That's what we have going on. So please continue to support us financially. Any and every gift is greatly appreciated. As we move into the idea, and we are moving into the idea of when we all can get together again. I know that we all want our center to be what the center was before we left, and even more, because we've grown through this experience, obviously through our whole internet presence. So we're inviting you to be a part of that. If you're one of our members already and contributing members, we ask that you continue to be that contributing member, because things have not changed financially for us and our expenses, but we would know that we would really want to be where you want us to be when we kick back up again. In order to do that, we need you to be who you were and are in this process. All right. So please continue to support us financially. And I think that's it. I think the bid's still up to $400. We're waiting for one more on Rob Lamagno's picture called Stormy something. I forgot what it was. My mind is blank now after teaching a class like that. I've never done this before on a class where you're just, have one person talking. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I kind of like a talk show format a little bit better, but I enjoyed doing this with you today. So I hope you enjoyed it. Read over those prayers. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay online, please. Oh, and don't forget the Coachella Valley Rescue Mission concert today. Jeff Harrison, Swingpoint Media, Jerry Lynn, a lot of our leaders are involved in a huge concert today online, Coachella Valley Rescue Mission concert. I think, Jeff, it's cvrm.org, and you can go there and I think it's $10 to get into the concert today. And it's not just a short concert, right?
Right. It starts at 3 p.m. and it's at cvcovidrelief.com. And it's just $10. Starts at 3 o'clock. I think we're going to be going till about 10 o'clock at night, and we're going to have a lot of fun.
So it starts at 3, goes till 10, so 7 hours. That's a long time. You can have dinner.
It's a party.
Yeah, it's a party. You know what, Trey and I do that every weekend. We watch concerts online from our friends that are doing Facebook Live and things like this. It's our entertainment. We just put it up on the computer. We cook. We do. It's the whole process. So, Jeff, I'm sure one more time for the address. It's
cvcovid, COVID relief.com.
Okay.
All the details are there.
Okay, great. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining me, and the concert this afternoon and meditation tomorrow at 10. See you there. Have a great day. Bye, folks.
Thank you, Dr. Joe.
Thank you.